people of the internet. I hope everyone is doing well. So, welcome to my new video. This video is going to be a little different from the previous one. It is going to be a little more scientific and rooted in what I basically want to do for a living. So, I am in the Culinary Institute of America to study, and I'm doing applied food studies, which is basically the study of how food relates to the human experience. And throughout this course, I've done some really interesting classes like anthropology of food, nutrition, food systems, food safety, history, and so on. There's so much. Ecology is like my favorite class right now. So yeah, there's so much that goes into studying the food experience other than just like cooking. And I noticed that something I learned in anthropology actually really relates to my journey as I was adopting like the vegan lifestyle, right? So when I first started looking at the vegan lifestyle, it was about September 2020, no, August 2020, and I was pretty fascinated by it. I really agree with most of the philosophy. I mean, of course, each person's philosophy differs, but I realized that on Instagram there are a lot of people who are very, very, very ill informed, right? I mean, that's where we go for news now, Instagram, because no one else is trustworthy or whatever. But yeah, so both on the vegan side and the non-vegan side, there is so much misinformation about how or why people are vegan. And one of the most important aspects is what I'm going to be tackling right now is the evolutionary aspect of veganism, right? So first I'm going to talk about why the vegans are wrong in a lot of aspects when they talk about evolution and veganism. Most vegans think that humans did not evolve to eat animal products, and they are absolutely incorrect. I know this is a little controversial, but they're absolutely incorrect because human beings did evolve to eat animal products. And I think that is the prime reason why we were able to, spread all over the world, from Africa to Asia to Europe to Australia to the Americas. It is because of our omnivorous nature and our ability to eat almost anything, right? There are so many communities where people eat seafood and plants, and there are other places where people have never seen seafood, and there are vegetarian communities, but there are also very, very meat heavy communities, in places that are more remote or deserted. So human beings can consume animal products. They did evolve to. Now, a very common argument is actually there are two common arguments that are very interlinked, and both of them have a very simple explanation that people don't really want to listen to, or it doesn't strike them when they think about it. But first thing that vegans ask is, why do we cook like meat if we had evolved to eat it, right? And the answer is very simple. Cooking food makes it easier to eat, right? When human beings started evolving into the current like Homo sapiens, they did that by cutting down on the time they took to do certain primal activities like looking for food, killing an animal for food, eating the food, and so on. So if you do this experiment for most food products, eating a cooked food will be easier than eating raw food. Like, try biting into a carrot. You will take at least 3 times the amount of time eating a raw carrot as you will a cooked carrot. So it just saves up on time, and that time they needed that extra few hours to sort of evolve their brains and think of like technology, art, and like leisure activities and so on. And that's the only reason we cook animal products. If you think about it that way, that like humans didn't evolve to eat a certain thing because you have to cook it now to eat it, then we can't eat beans, we cannot eat rice, we cannot eat potatoes. They're all very important source of carbs and protein in our diet. So like that point is very redundant, and I understand that you want to tell people not to eat meat, but there's a better way to do it, right? And the other point that they always bring up is human beings' teeth and skull and bone structure are not similar to omnivores or carnivores, right? And again, it goes back to the same point. It is because we learn to cook food, right? Cooked food means we don't have to chew that much, we don't have to tear things that much, it becomes tender. We use oil, we use water, it softens up the food so we can bite it and we can tear into it and we can swallow it without having to have really, really sharp teeth, right? It's just, it is very much evolutionary and scientific. And yes, human beings were born with the ability to eat, like, to eat meat and animal products. Whether it's healthy or not is a different question. I mean, there are a lot of plant products that aren't healthy, right? Like the trans fats are usually from plant fat and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, also, yeah, white sugar, not very good for health, but we still consume it, and it's from plants. So yeah, just saying that humans did not evolve to eat animals is a fallacy. And the minute people in a movement start quoting false like information just to get across that point, the whole movement starts to seem disingenuous, and we should just like not do that, because veganism is rooted in like science and logic, and more than that, it's rooted in morality. So when people bring up these false facts and are ill-informed, it sort of takes away from people who are actually doing work to promote veganism. Like basically the whole movement is going to start looking like a joke if ignorant vegans start spreading misinformation, right? So let's try to read up more, and I will also try to do that. If there's something that I said that was inaccurate, I will read up on it and learn. Okay, now coming to the non-vegans, right? Also full of that argument in the same like evolution topic is again very misinformed. So first of all, let's talk about what an omnivore is. An omnivore is a creature or an animal that can consume both animal products as well as plant products. But that does not mean that they need either to live. Like if you were the most I don't know, most used non-vegan argument, if you were stuck on an island with only animals, no plants, which is highly improbable, but okay, you will be able to survive, right? You can eat the animal and you will be able to survive for a good amount of time. And the same way, if you were, the flip side, stuck on an island with absolutely no animals and no fish, nothing, and there was just plants, you would still be able to live, because omnivores are not obligatory carnivores, neither are they obligatory herbivores, right? So very invalid point, it does not make sense. No. Another thing is, just because cavemen or cave people did it doesn't mean we need to do it, right? So evolution is a thing, as we've already established, and human beings have evolved to go past the circle of life. We are not part of the food chain anymore. We have removed ourselves from the food chain. okay, we get our food from supermarkets, we grow our own food, we don't depend on nature, and when we die, nature does not reclaim us, right? So it does not make sense to say that cavemen ate meat, therefore we have to. The whole situation was a lot different back then, obviously. Yeah, I'm not going to go further on this point because we all know why it doesn't make sense. Also, no, I am going to explain a little more. So, yeah, we have evolved and we have started developing agriculture, which means we have things like soy, we have things like wheat, we have rice, we have beans, and we have so many things, so you don't have to worry about your protein. We have algae now. We know how to harvest algae, which is a lot more environmentally sustainable than fish and seafood. So yeah, this algae has a lot of the nutrients that we need. So we just get it straight from there instead of getting it through the animal. So yeah, we don't need it anymore because of evolution. The yeah yeah that's I think that explains it pretty well. Now another point that bothers me so much, oh my god, is people fail to understand what survival of the fittest means, right? When Charles Darwin came up with survival of the fittest, he did not mean that weaker people or weaker animals deserve to die. That is not what he said, and it has been used that way over history to justify oppression and genocide and a lot of other horrible things. So I think we should stop framing it like that or thinking that that's what it means. That is not what he meant. What he meant is that every organism is born with a number of traits that are coded in our DNA. And certain traits are adaptive and certain traits are maladaptive. So we have things like tonsils, wisdom teeth, the belly button, and a lot of people say the pinky toe, right? All of these things were part of our ape heritage and we don't need them anymore. So they need to be removed. And I'm sure in like a couple of generations, these parts of our body will not be there anymore, right? Because we will, like human beings will stop, like their bodies will stop using energy to grow these parts because it doesn't have any use for them anymore, if that makes sense. And those are the traits that were the fittest. The traits that were the fittest as everything else that has lasted. And if someone has a not so adaptive trait, like say I was born with wisdom teeth and I have a kid with someone who has wisdom teeth, the next generation will have wisdom teeth, but as it goes on and on, people will stop having wisdom teeth just because there is no point in them and they actually cause more problems than good. So yeah, now that we know that fun piece of information, let's try to be more well informed. I think it's really sad that we know so little about our ancestry and like about food and how we're supposed to eat because it's such a basic primal instinct and it has been corrupted by corporations and like media and trends and stuff. But yeah, it shouldn't be this hard to really know things that are such like rooted in common sense. But yeah, the reason I took up veganism is because it is the best option for human beings at the moment. And like animals do not need to suffer that much right now because we have other sources of food, we have other sources of nutrition, and yeah, we don't really need to make animals suffer for our so-called enjoyment. Another thing is the way that animals are raised for slaughter right now is unsustainable, disgusting. inhumane, and also inhumane to the people who work there, because it's considered the most dangerous industry. Like slaughterhouses are the most dangerous industries. They employ a lot of like um, undocumented laborers, and they're all exploited in the worst ways possible and given no compensation when something bad happens. It's just, and the environmental toll of like the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted just because of raising one unit of cattle, or the amount of water used to maintain them, and the amount of deforestation and further destruction of habitat for other animals, overfishing, all of this is just not necessary right now, and will probably never be necessary if we continue to develop in the pace that we're developing. And I think there are enough scientific reasons as to why veganism is a good option for people to take up, and why we should start changing how we really look at food and look at how we live and how we consume. We do not need to use all these like defensive things like, oh, why do you eat meat if you need to put salt on it? I'm sorry, but dear vegans, you do not eat unsalted broccoli either. That's disgusting. None of us can eat food without salt or spices. So yeah, let's try to make more logical arguments in the future. And non-vegans, please, if you want to troll us, use some logical trolls. Yep. Yeah, that brings me to the end of my video. This was also a little rambly, but I hope I got across my point, and I hope it made sense. If it didn't, I'll be happy to like clear it up more for everyone. And yeah, have a good like rest of the week, and see you next week.